and welcome to The Print. I am Debdutta, and today we are in conversation with Mohibul Hassan Chowdhury Nowfel, who is former organizing member of the Awami League and a former education minister under Hasina's government until last year. Now, it has been a year since the 16-year rule of Hasina and the Awami League government was toppled last year by the July protests, which saw a lot of political turmoil in Bangladesh. A year later, the country still seems to be stuck in a loop. And to understand what the situation is right now and how the Awami League looks forward to this situation amid a ban on the party, we discussed with the former education minister on what he thinks is the state of Awami League right now and what the party plans going ahead. Welcome to The Print, sir.
Thank you for connecting me today.
So, sir, to begin with, a lot has happened over the past year. We saw the kind of uprising that took place in the country and the events that followed after. For starters, once the interim government was brought in place with Professor Yunus at the helm of affairs, Awami League as a party was banned, its registration was cancelled, and now elections are no more in sight. Elections don't seem to be happening anytime soon. The interim government has said that it might take place in June next year, but there has been no specific date. Amid all of this, what is the state of Awami League on ground in Bangladesh right now?
Thank you for connecting me here today with The Print. So you asked me about the state of Awami League. Institutionally speaking, the illegal interim government that is running the country at the moment is scared of Awami League's popularity. They have toppled an elected government through a riot, which they call, of course, an uprising or an every-hour revolution, whatever they want to call it. It was basically a riot gone out of control. And through that riot, they have toppled an elected government. But having seen their mismanagement, whilst they were in government, majority of our people are wanting Awami League back into the role of governing the country, and especially our leader, Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina-led government has shown to the nation that Bangladesh can change its fate. Bangladesh can be something other than what Henry Kissinger once upon a time said was a bottomless basket. Now, as they see that is the sentiment of the people in the country, they now want to ban us from taking part in the next upcoming election. Without an election, they want to hold on to power. But even if there is an election, they want to stop Awami League from taking part in the election. We are aware of this. We are organizing our grassroots. We are all united under our leader, Sheikh Hasina, and we want to counter this attempt by the illegal government to stop us from taking part in the election. And we can assure you, without us, no election in Bangladesh will be credible and acceptable to the global community and also to the people of Bangladesh.
And so, what do you think happened during the July protests and, which led to such a huge political shift in the country? What do you think were the sequence of events that a year later, when you think about it, what do you think the sequence of events were like?
You see, what began as a populist demonstration or a movement eventually was turned into a bloodbath by not the government of the day, but by the conspirators who wanted it to turn it into a bloodbath or a bloody incident. So what we see today is something that we should have taken action against during that time. Perhaps we were ill-prepared, but more importantly, what was at play was a global and local conspiracy, which the Yunus regime, the current regime, has openly confessed. And they have said that they had designed a meticulous plan. As part of their meticulous plan, they were attacking police stations, they were attacking peaceful demonstrations, and in fact, they wanted a number of deaths to be going up so that people of the country feel angry and upset about the way government was handling the matter. They had deployed trained assassins, snipers to shoot down peaceful protesters. At first, we took it as it was, a populist demand, and we respected people's right to protest and right to express themselves. So we were happy that the people were protesting on the street and the matter was being resolved in the court. That's how we took the whole situation. As you have seen yourself, that certain individuals and vested interests within many of our institutions somewhat conspired with the designers of this meticulous plan, and also influencers and interveners from abroad. We have heard UN, one of the UN key position holders, Mr. Volker Turk, he had confessed that he had threatened the military leaders of our country at that time and asked them not to take part in any kind of riot control activities, or else they would be sanctioned by the UN peacekeeping mission, etc. In many ways, they were agitating the people in the ground. And in fact, when all of this just had began, when there was no death toll, one of the embassies in Dhaka, one of the Western countries, had declared that they were mourning for 5 people that were killed at that time, although no reported death had happened. So with the way they behaved, the foreign and their local conspirators, the foreign influencers and local participants of this conspiracy, it's evidently clear that a lot of money was spent on doing this, on toppling us. But we don't want to look back. We understand that in any given riot, people die, and we sympathize with each and every one who had died. We want justice. We want neutral, independent, international investigation into this matter. Although in the name of international investigation, the illegal interim regime had called in a panel from United Nations Human Rights Commission, where none of our statements were taken into account. We were the government in charge at the time, but as you know, we are not able to come out in the public and defend our position and even say what we from our side had seen, what was happening in the ground. So we feel that it was a one-sided report by the UN agency, and it was all part of this Yunus regime's plan to discredit us.
And so when you talk about conspirators who led to what you describe as riots, who do you think these conspirators are in your perspective?
Well, there were foreign and local players in this plot. As you know, Mr. Yunus has an international clout. He has his friends in the right places in different countries' administration, especially in the United States, in the UK, in the European Union, and even in international organizations. The man had been running his international campaign, his global campaign, for many years. Of course, he will have the right sort of people in the right sort of places. And his networking is well known across the world. However, he did not have local collaborators in the past. This time, he had taken help of the extremists, Islamist extremists, extremists who were within the government organizations, institutions, and also some of the institution leaders. Of course, I don't want to name the institutions because, of course, I was serving within the government. It would be not right for me to name the institutions. However, he had found the right type of local collaborators. His global prominence was always there, but local connection was missing. This time he had succeeded in having the local base in place, and he had found a lot of support from parties which were branded by international organizations to be terror organizations, like Jamaat Islami, their student outfit Shibir and other terrorist outfits within the country. And as soon as he had taken over on the 8th of August, we have seen a lot of convicted criminals and terrorists were let out of the jails on bail. Number of rapes across the country had gone up, murders have gone up. Known terrorists who were apprehended by our law enforcement, convicted because of convicted because we had enough evidence from our international partners, partners within the Western world, who had supplied us with evidence against these individuals. They were convicted. They were serving their time in the prison. They have all been let out of the prisons. And this is what he had done as part of the bargain that he had with them, that they would help him topple us, and in return, he would let them out. And that is what is happening. And that is why the country is in a state of anarchy.
And sir, a year later, what do you think is the sentiment on ground for Awami League in Bangladesh?
Even when the sympathizers of the current illegal interim regime hold their public surveys, they find a lot of support from the general public across the country for Awami League, for especially Sheikh Hasina's leadership. Having seen these outputs in the public surveys, they have banned the party, and they want to ban it from the next upcoming election. All we are appealing to the nation, as well as the international partners and the international organizations, that if you truly believe in democracy, you just have to let Awami League take part in the election. That's all we're asking for. If you want, we all want that. We all want trial for the killings that had happened during that time and afterwards. We want independent, impartial investigation into the events. However, that does not mean that Awami League has to be withheld from the election. So just let us take part in the election and see who has the mandate of the people. And that fundamental principle now you are violating. That fundamental principle you are not upholding. If you believe in democracy, and this is our appeal to all the political parties as well within the country, that if you truly believe in democracy, you have to let Awami League take part in the election. None of these illegal occupiers of power, the usurpers of the government, are wanting the Awami League to take part in the election, because they know more than 60% of the people within the country, the electorates, the voters, are now saying that if they get a chance, they will vote for Awami League. The boat symbol of the Awami League, political support for it, and its symbol boat is overwhelming, which is why they do not want us to take part in even political activities. They have not just banned us from future election participation, but all kinds of activities. If as a minister I am to be tried, I am to be convicted, then I of course will accept it if it is done under an independent, impartial tribunal. However, the activists of Awami League who believe in the ideology, who believe in the leadership, and who just want to take part in their regular political activities, why would you stop them? Awami League is not a proscribed organization anywhere in the planet. Whereas the partner of the Yunus regime, Jamaat-e-Islami's student outfit, had been banned and declared to be a terrorist organization by a Canadian court in Canada. United States also has imposed significant restriction on the leaders of Jamaat-e-Islami, including BNP's top leadership, Tariq Rahman. Whereas you have all this international evidence that the BNP and Jamaat in the past had assisted terrorist organizations within the country who wanted to create instability in India's northeast and inside India, with the help of Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, ISI. And as a result of this, international community had imposed significant travel restriction against these leadership, against the leaders of the BNP Jamaat alliance of the time. Not a single country anywhere in the world had said that Awami League should be restricted, or Awami League was ever involved in any kinds of terrorism or any kinds of subversive activity. Now, only the illegal regime in Bangladesh feels that way. And they have imposed an arbitrary and unilateral sanction on the party, which is absolutely absurd. And it shows that they have no confidence in the will of the people. It shows that they are very weak. But in the interest of the country's economy and its stability, we are still composed in the way we are holding our protests. We are still guiding and monitoring our activists and trying to keep them as peaceful as possible. We are struggling, of course, because we have been pushed underground. And if the party becomes an underground party, at some point there comes to a point where you can't control the activists anymore, and they will be susceptible to subversive activities in order to survive. And this is why it's important that regional partners of Bangladesh and the international community realize that Bangladesh cannot be turned into another failed state. It is a country of 170 million people. There is a big diaspora in Europe, in US, in UK, in many different Western countries, including in the Middle East. And if Bangladesh turns into another Somalia, another Haiti, another Afghanistan, it is a global threat. It will become a global threat. And therefore, stability of Bangladesh is in the interest of the global community. So we are still working with our partners abroad and the international community to convince this eccentric, lunatic, militant gang that they must give in to the will of the people.
And sir, how are the party workers there and across the diaspora looking at the ban on Awami League and trying to mobilize now that Hasina is not in Bangladesh?
The party workers are all united. Right now, of course, they're inspired. At the very beginning, for a couple of months, most of them, almost all of us, were highly traumatized, having seen the level of destruction, the violence, the purge against us. Our homes were burned, our businesses were destroyed, our relatives were arrested, we were arrested en masse, and many of us were killed, were raped, killed, burned. Not just us, everyone who supported the spirit of 1971, the progressives, the seculars, almost everyone in society were attacked for being collaborators of Awami League. Anyone who had benefited from the stability of last 15 years were attacked and termed as collaborators. It's as if that the force that we had defeated in 1971 had reignited themselves and they had won again after 54 years. So that was the situation at that time. However, as the people are now slowly recovering from the trauma and now responding to this criminal gang and their mismanagement, misappropriation, and violent way of running the country, Awami League now feels that we can, not just feels, but Awami League is reorganizing itself across the country. The problem is the capital city. In the capital city, Dhaka, most of the armed cadres of all the underground parties are now gathered. They are all staying there because they feel that if there is a fall of Dhaka, their government will not sustain. So they do not have any footing across the country, but they are focused in Dhaka, which is why they have now created this fictional story of Awami League's plan to bring about another fall of Dhaka. Of course, we are not a party which believes in conspiracy with the help of army or anyone in the government, but they are now accusing us of conspiring with certain members of the armed forces to bring about another fall of Dhaka. We don't believe in falls of anybody. We believe in rise of Bangladesh. And therefore, we want to work with everyone involved, but not with the criminal lunatic gang. They are now calling for a second republic, as if the country had been liberated from, as if the country had another liberation, in 2024. And they want to rewrite history. They want to wipe off our 1971's history. They want to get rid of secularism and Bengali nationalism from our constitution, which is why they are calling for a July proclamation. There was no revolution in July. It was a riot gone out of control. Even when they were demanding for whatever they were demanding, change of constitution or the structure or the fundamental principle of the country was not in the agenda. Now that they have sat in the chair, now they're saying that this is what they want to implement. Who had given them the mandate? They do not have any support from the public, and therefore they must realize the limitation that they are under. And they took oath. They took oath under the existing constitution. The constitution has not been suspended. Without suspending the constitution, and whilst you are under oath to uphold the constitution, how can you call for a new proclamation which challenges the very constitution under which you have taken an oath under? So these things have to be considered. These things have to be considered by the institutions in the country, the civil service, the military service, the judicial service, and they must put pressure on this gang of people who are illegally occupying the government seat. And also you have to, if you look into the personal profiles of the advisors and the Yunus's assistants of Dr. Yunus, almost all of them are dual nationals. They are going to run away from the country as soon as Mr. Yunus comes out of power. So constitutionally, they do not have the right to hold onto any kind of constitutional position. If you choose allegiance of a country under our current existing constitution, you cannot sit in constitutional positions. Constitution have to be changed for them to be competent to take these seats. So the entire saga is an illegal saga, and no government will be able to give them legality. They have to be given some kind of legality. Otherwise, this whole taking over of the government is going to remain illegal for the foreseeable future.
And sir, since we are talking about, conspiracies and legalities, a lot of things have been happening over the past year. A recent report by Odhikar, a quarterly report on the since the interim regime came into power, says that Awami League workers have faced the highest number of political violence. My first question is, what do you think is the reason behind it? Is there a lingering sentiment of anger against Awami League, which you think led to the protests? Also, when the protests took place, you then were the education minister. You saw what happened in the university spaces, the college campuses. Is there something that could have been done differently? And secondly, is the Awami League now planning any kind of a change in, say, leadership in keeping with the prevailing sentiment? Or is it planning to, mobilize party workers more? Also, since we are talking about the ban, which I think is quite important in the current political scenario, there have been allegations and claims of the previous few elections being rigged in favor of Awami League. And now the interim regime says that when a election it does happen in June, July, or whatever date, since no specific date has yet been given, it will be a fresh election. It will be a new election that will give the youth a chance to vote, the youth which has not had a chance to vote yet. How do you, as part of the Awami League party, respond to these allegations, and what do you feel about it?
See, elections in Bangladesh, in each and every election, results had always been contested highly. In the past, we used to see elections where no voter lists were decided or agreed by the political parties. It was an election of compromise rather than truly objective process under which people were able to vote. The first neutral, objective election that had taken place in Bangladesh in its entire history, where individuals voted for themselves instead of someone else, was the election in 2008, where people had their ID cards. They went to the polling stations. The ID cards were matched with the voter list, and Awami League got an overwhelming public mandate from the public at that time. It was for the first time that had happened. Thereafter, in 2014, BNP and Jamaat Islami and its allied forces boycotted the election. It was not our fault. We did not ask them not to take part. Like, for example, this time, we are obstructed from taking part in the election. That time, they themselves had decided not to take part but to oppose, and violently they did. For 2 years they ran rampage across the country. So it was them who did not allow the youth of the time to take part in the electoral process, because they had ran violent activities across the country, burned polling stations, etc. And in a one-sided election, but constitutionally valid and legal election, we returned back to power. 2018 came. Yes, there were some allegations of rigging, but in a country where rigging was the norm, you could say that this could have been politically, legally, constitutionally challenged, but BNP did not take that path. Instead, they alleged that the entire election was rigged. If it was rigged, the entire election was rigged, how did they manage to get at least 7 MPs into the parliament? Of course, we don't say that the election was perfect. 2018 election was not perfect. We are not disputing that claim. However, they had the chance to bring those allegations out into the public. Yes, we had our own challenges and issues, but from 2018 onwards up to 2024, the way the government had handled the COVID pandemic, the vaccination across the country, the economic progress despite the global meltdown and recession, etc., people did not lose faith on us. And come 2024, our biggest political, I would say, challenge or political shortcoming was that we failed to create a consensus amongst all the political parties to take part in the 2024 election. Instead, we had allowed Awami Leaguers to fight the election amongst themselves. This had created a rift across the party and in the country, where within the party, people were standing one against the other, which meant that the party became a divided political party. They took advantage of it. As the party got divided in the 2024 election, where 67 independent MPs were elected. You see, 67 independent MPs can only be elected if there was a real vote. And 2024 election was a real vote. But again, BNP, Jamaat, and its allied political parties had decided to boycott the election. That was their choice. But people did vote. If anyone says that they did not vote or the youth were not allowed to take part in the vote, it's wrong. Maybe in the urban areas, Dhaka and Chittagong and very few urban areas, the urban elite and their associated youth had somewhat missed out from taking part in the election. But Bangladesh is not Dhaka and Chittagong. Bangladesh is a country of 170 million people, and 45% of them had casted their vote in the last general election. Just because some opinionated Gen Z from Dhaka and Chittagong had decided that they will not take part in the election, that does not put the entire electoral process under question. So yes, it is that political force which had turned violent in our urban areas. If you look at the July riot situation, it was the Dhaka-centric and urban movement. It wasn't across the country. Yes, there was some level of violence across the country, not to the extent that it had happened in Dhaka and the surrounding areas. So you have to understand that this allegation that Awami League was detached from the people is completely wrong and false. If it was so, how come 45% people did vote in 2024 election? Yes, it wasn't. It was below 50%, which is of course a bad thing for politics as far as we are concerned. But it wasn't entirely an unbelievable outcome or an election. Now, Awami League was never detached from the people. Awami League activists are all united. If anyone says that Awami League needs to be reorganized, it is they are part of this meticulous plan. Awami League remains a center-left political party firmly grounded with the people. Our activists are all active. The challenge is that the current administration is using the army and the police against the Awami League. In our 15 years of running the country, Sheikh Hasina never had used the army and the police together against BNP and Jamaat and other opposition forces. Never. We had not done that once. But this government, as soon as they came to power, they have deployed the armed forces against its own citizens. You've seen it in Gopalganj how, under the instruction of Yunus regime, the armed forces were forced to shoot at innocent protesters, and almost at least 54 people are still missing. And we have information that their bodies had been they have hidden their bodies, and there is no trace of these individuals. 54 people are missing in one district alone, in one incident. So this level of violence we have never seen in the country's 54-year history. And having seen all of this, now we are further entrenched into the ideological basis that we've always held on to, which is the spirit of our 1971 war. And we believe that the youth, some of them who had taken part with this eccentric lot, the anarchists, they now realize what they have done. Before, they used to dream of a government job, and now there is no government to have to hold on to. Before, they were demonstrating for quota or reduction of the quota. Now all the government selections are being done by this gang of Yunus who are illegally occupying the power, the government. So they now realize that they've all been misled into something far more disastrous and hopeless for them. So many of them are contacting us. Many of them are apologizing. They're showing their remorse, and we also feel for them. These are our children. Those who came out to protest against us were our children, our citizens. And not only so, we had also seen that many of the Awami League families had also came out to protest, because it was at the time a popular protest, a popular movement, which is why we were very helpful and in fact cooperated with the protesters. But those who had started to kill the protesters, other perpetrators, police had to respond the way at some points, police had to respond the way they did, because police personnel were killed, burned, hanged with bridges, foot over bridges, and pregnant police constables were killed with children, with child she was carrying. You see, this level of violence we had not even seen during the 1971 war of liberation, where police were attacked across the country. Even the Mukti Bahini did not attack police outposts. Rather, they were fighting the Pakistani illegal army. So we are confident that this generation are still are supporting us, because they all think of their future. They don't want to, they're not bothered about who is in power. They want to see a livelihood for them in the future. They want to, now they see that with Bangladeshi passport, no country is giving them entry or visa. They're really struggling to go abroad and work or study. Bangladesh is now becoming designated pariah state or a failed state. And when you have that kind of a tag against a country of 170 million people, it is a threat for India. It is a threat for the West. It is a threat for everyone, because there is a huge diaspora. A country of 170 million people cannot be forgiven. And for the sake of global humanity, for the sake of regional stability and peace, the Yunus regime must go. Yunus must be tried. An investigation must be held. We need answers for this, and we want to be accountable to our young people. So yes, we are confident that no matter what, if there is an election where we are able to take part with full, with our full Awami League panel, and even if we lose that election, we will accept the outcome. So we are that confident that we are prepared to lose, because we are confident about the support of the people. But these lot are not confident to win. We are confident to lose an election, but they are not confident to win the election.
Based on what you said, when the elections happen and when Awami League chooses to contest it, you will go with the same panel of leadership and there will be no change in leadership, right?
Why should there be a change of leadership? Sheikh Hasina as leader is our biggest asset. She is the uniting factor of the country. Just because some extremists feel the way they do about her, rest of the people don't think the way these extremists think. Rest of the people of Bangladesh want Bangladesh Awami League-led government under Sheikh Hasina. Sheikh Hasina is not just an average individual; she is an institution. Under her, Awami League is united entirely from the grassroots to the top. There is no compromise on that. There will never be a compromise on that whilst she's in this world. What there will be in the future is something that the party will decide in its council. So there's no question of change of leadership. Yes, from time to time, amongst the within the top tier of the party, like myself, if I'm not performing for the party good enough, I should be replaced. But having seen our leader's performance and how people take her into account, we can't even think of a party without her. We can't think of Bangladesh's future without her. No. So people like us who work with us, if we do not perform, we should all be changed. Whether it is the general secretary of the party or the organizing secretary of the party. I was the organizing secretary of Bangladesh Awami League for some times. And when I entered the government, the policy decision was taken that I will not continue within the party's central leadership. But I remain active within the parties with the central leaders of the party because I was in this central government. Now, if I do not perform well, if I don't fulfill my role as a central leader, then I should go. I should let new leadership come and take over. And it is happening. It has been happening in the Awami League for a long time. So leadership change is a routine matter. But the supreme leader, the topmost leader of the party is our most valuable political asset. Sheikh Hasina is the most valuable political capital of Awami League and Bangladeshi political arena. No one can even have a second thought about her because of her acceptance across the country. Just because some riotous anarchic gang, with the help of certain members within the security forces and other institutions, had decided that she should be toppled, doesn't mean that the rest of the country has disowned her. She still enjoys 70% plus public support in Bangladesh, across the country. Dr. Yunus doesn't even have 7% support from the people of Bangladesh. Let's hold an election there. If you want to really truly assess who is popular and who has the public mandate, let's hold an election. Why are you shying away from the election, Mr. Yunus? This is our question.
But circling back to the quota protests, there's the ICT case going on against Hasina and several other Awami League members. And
against myself as well. I'm also indicted in one of the cases.
Yes. So what do you have to say about the cases? Like we talked about the UN fact-finding report, which mentioned that, 1,400 people had been killed. A BBC report and a
list of these 1,400 people. You see, this is the massive discrepancy. The illegal interim government is claiming that 750 people have been killed. That is what they're claiming. Whereas they have given a fictitious number of 1,400 people to the UN investigation team. So it's almost double of what the government is saying. And we firmly believe that more people were killed after 5th of August across the country, none of which had been accounted for. And out of the 700 people that they are claiming which have died, almost half of them were our activists. And to date, almost 400 police personnel are still missing. And it is one of the best kept dirty secret of this government where they still haven't accounted for the number of police personnel who were killed. And we believe that more than 200 policemen were killed during this time. 100 are missing, maybe they're injured or have or are hiding because of the persecution by the current government. But more than 200 people, 200 police personnel were killed during this time. So of course we want answers. We want answers, and this tribunal that had been set up, it is not a place to have to get any answer, because the tribunal has no mandate. The tribunal is set up under a temporary ordinance of the president. Now, you know
Right, but
that
Sheikh Hasina herself set up the tribunal.
tribunal was set up by the Sheikh Hasina government to try the collaborators of 1971 war. This government has passed a temporary ordinance to and brought some amendment within the tribunal's process, the rules of procedure, to try us. Something which was set up to try for something else under an act of parliament cannot be undone by an ordinance of president. Ordinances are temporary in nature. What is the parliamentary approval for this temporary law? So the tribunal is illegal, constitutionally speaking. You cannot try anyone under the Constitution of Bangladesh under an incomplete law. The legal process under which we are being tried is an incomplete law. It is an ordinance passed by the cabinet of the Yunus government. Parliament has not given it any legal sanction. It has not been passed in the parliament. It is not an act of parliament. Whereas the original tribunal was an act of parliament. It was an outcome of an act of parliament, 1973's Collaborators Act and ICT Tribunal. It was passed in a duly held parliament. And all the amendments thereafter was also passed in a duly in a parliamentary process. Now, this government has passed a hastily arranged ordinance just to try us. You cannot try anyone anywhere in the world under a temporary law. You need a complete law. Now, which is why we say that it's a farce. It's a kangaroo court. No one is allowed to even represent there through a lawyer from abroad. Although technically we can send lawyers, but we cannot file for our defense lawyers there. So the entire process is a farce. The entire process is a farce, and the chief prosecutor of the tribunal was a defense attorney for all the Razakars and the collaborators of 1971, and he still is the appointed lawyer for those who were indicted, charged, and convicted in this very tribunal. How can the same person who was the defense attorney of those who were tried in the tribunal now become the chief prosecutor? Forget about the big words like constitutional propriety or legality. This person, it's a complete conflict of interest. So, basic conflict of interest. So the whole process is a farce.
So, sir, then how then would you respond to, the 160 cases that have been put against you, the 200 or more than 200 cases that have been put against the former PF Sheikh Hasina, the BBC report which mentions that it was Sheikh Hasina who ordered these killings, and there's a recent report which was released 3 days ago by the Human Rights Watch, which says that extrajudicial killings were unprecedented during Sheikh Hasina's time. Even today, a 23-year-old student has testified against her. What do you have to say against these claims then?
No. Our government was in power for 15 years. At a time when the global war on terror was very much in the agenda in the global community. We had to work with global intelligence services, global foreign intelligence services to curb the spread of terrorism across the world. It was the time of the IS spreading in the Middle East. It was the time when Al Qaeda was on rampage. So of course, like the US intelligence agency had operated at times without legal sanction, with extraordinary rendition, with Guantanamo Bay on operation, our security forces also had to do certain things which one would say were not entirely legal. We do not disown that. Due to the need of the time, there were certain things that we had to do which were not entirely compliant with global human rights standards. And it happens in all countries in the world. I mean, from the United Kingdom to India to Australia, when you apprehend terrorists, you do not always follow the due process. It's not possible. It's just simply not possible. And of course, violations of such standards had routinely occurred. There is no doubt about that. However, given the challenges that we had faced, the discrepancies or the violations that we are being accused of, I do not find them to be entirely unreasonable. In a 15-year-long span of the government, they were claiming that 80 people were missing. No one could say that 80 were extrajudicially killed, but 80 people in a country of 170 million people over a period of 15 years are missing. Do you find that to be a very unreasonable figure? I don't. Of course, I don't. However, international agencies have always accused governments in different countries in the way that from their puritanic position, they find what is right. Isn't the same Human Rights Watch continuously complaining about India's human rights record in Kashmir, or in Manipur, or in other states of India? Isn't the same Human Rights Watch is complaining about Israel's actions in Gaza, or United States actions in different countries in the world? But are they the standard of international global of international legal processes? Of course not. These are advocacy organizations. If there is one, they have to add zeros for their own survival to make things bigger than what they are. That's their business. Now, I'm not complaining about them, but what I'm saying is that you have to read the situation in the context that it had operated. The context must be understood. You cannot bring just a 23-year-old and ask him to testify against Sheikh Hasina in her absence or in her defense lawyer's absence. The entire process is farce. We firmly believe that this unsustainable government cannot uphold the process, the trial that they are holding. It is flawed. It is totally illegal, and it will collapse any day. Politics is still in our side. Public sentiment is still in our side. We just need to give it a bit more time, because we do not want the people of the country to suffer more. We want to end their suffering, and in right time we will strike in the right way, and this lot will not remain in power for long.
Sir, so to tie up all these questions, if I had to ask you one question, what, according to you, is the current political situation in Bangladesh right now? What would you say?
You see, Bangladesh is sliding down in all the global indexes that it had represented proudly itself for the last 15 years. In terms of human development, hunger is on the rise. In terms of women's empowerment, not only that it is going down, but outright violation of their rights through rape, through harassment, through moral policing is happening across the country, and even within the capital city of Dhaka. In terms of basic stability, law and order situation, number of murder has quadrupled in the country. People who used to go and travel abroad and work abroad, their passports are now not being accepted in different countries when they go abroad to work. So it's in a state of complete chaos. Because the government doesn't have any legitimacy, not only because of that, but also because of the fact that there is a rise of extremism in the country. It is in a state of meltdown. It is in a state of meltdown. And the world cannot allow Bangladesh to melt down like it is melting down. it must recognize that the illegal Yunus regime is bringing the country to its knees and is responsible for everything that is happening there. And they must ask him to leave the seat of power and let the country be ran by an elected government where all political parties are allowed to take part in the election in an open, free and fair election. And only then the country will see a stable and democratic and economically prosperous future. This realization must come amongst the global elite. Just because Dr. Yunus wearing his Grameen check shirts and giving a nice little speech in their wine and dining sessions doesn't mean that the man is capable of handling a country of 170 million people, because he's not attached to the people. He had never lived in the country for a considerable period of time to understand the public psychology. He was part of the global elite. You cannot just bring in a global member of the global elite and let the country to be run by him. This is not the time of the colonial government where the Britishers used to send viceroys to rule over India and their colonies across the world. It is no longer that colonial time. You see, so Dr. Yunus is almost like a colonial viceroy sent over by the deep states of different neo-colonial countries who want to rule rule Bangladesh because of its geostrategic importance. Bangladesh is extremely important for two of the major global powerhouses, India and China. So they want to have a foothold within Bangladesh. Bangladesh is very close to China and actually practically geographically within India. From the land border to the sea border, Bangladesh is not India's neighbor. Bangladesh lives within India. So those who have vested interest to control these two rising global powers will want to have Bangladesh as the strategic landmass in order to control the two rising forces of the global economy. So we have to convince the regional players and regional powerhouses, power brokers, and there has to be a regional consensus that if we turn Bangladesh into a playground of the big boys, everyone is going to suffer.
And sir, to end this interview with one final question, my question is, do you think the Awami League will be able to come back into the Bangladeshi political scene?
If there is an election tomorrow, within even 48 hours notice, where all of us are allowed to take part, we firmly believe that we will get the minimum threshold to form a government, even in this state. Because people have seen for the last 11 months what we were able to manage and deliver and what everyone else are able to. BNP and Jamaat, although they are not in power, they are in the society of Bangladesh. How they are behaving, how they are performing, they've seen these two political actors. So people are firmly behind us. People are ready to support us, and we are even if there is a defeat, we are ready to accept that defeat. We are that confident. So let us take part in the election, which this lot are not allowing. So we are confident that things will change. We are united. We are just waiting for the right time, the right moment when we can do what we have to do in order to get rid of this illegal government.
With that, we come to an end of the interview. Thank you so much for taking out time to speak with us. Thank you for joining the Print.
Thank you.